I've just listened to Phil's latest video, that's Phil at Wings of Pegasus, where he's talking about his new service called Authentic Vocal. Now, I just felt that I'd had to do sort of a little bit of a response to this video, and I've watched Phil and Wings of Pegasus. I've said this on my last video, I think, when I was talking about Cliff Richard miming and various things. For some time. I've watched him for some time, and I think it's very, very good. And the concept of what he tries to prove, and he proves this with, basically analytical tools, and he works hard to well, it doesn't really try to prove anything. I think he just tries to give the truth on whether a vocal's live or whether it's not, so that's good. Now, his latest thing that he's just talked about is something called, as I said, Authentic Vocal. Now, the theory behind this is that what he will do is that, I suppose there's multiple ways that this will work, but the one way is that maybe if you're a band and you've just recorded your latest album, you would send this album to Phil, and Phil will authenticate that it is actually a live vocal, that it is actually not using auto-tune, and that, there are not that you're miming anyway, I don't think that really works, but I suppose it's mostly to do with auto-tune and things like that with an album. So you send your album, he authenticates it, and then you get this nice little logo, which is very nice actually, the AV. Logo that you can put on your album to say that, we didn't use auto-tune on this, so it's an authentic voice. Now, I like that idea. That's brilliant. Cracking idea, that. And but the other idea, and I'm not totally sure on this, but I would like to be, I don't want to say proved wrong. I don't think it's a wrong thing, but what he's going to be doing is he's going to be asking some bands to get authenticated when they play live. So obviously he'll, take a recording of their live concert, and he will put it through his software and analyze it and work out whether it is or it isn't a live vocal, whether they're miming or whether they've got auto-tune, live auto-tune on their concert. Then obviously he'll send that information and he'll approve them, and he will give them a logo. So little logo, they can put it on their tickets or they can put it on their advertisement for the show, suggesting that this is going to be a live show. Now, whilst that is an amazingly brilliant idea, and yes, if you pay your money for a live show, you should go along to a live show, and it should be a live show, and I totally agree with that. Now, the slight problem I can see is that these bands, some bands might well sign up with Phil, might well get authenticated, and then, well, who's policing them after they've been authenticated? Does that mean that Phil or somebody from Phil's offices or friend of Phil has to wander along to every concert they do to verify that they are actually still singing live? Or do we just take it on trust that every concert that we go to in the future by this artist that's now verified under Authentic Vocal is going to be singing live? I don't think the music business is that, I'd hate to use the word honest, but I think everyone that's in the music business realises that they're not. And so, if, say, for instance, Phil then decides to do a run-up check, runner-up check. Oh, no, that's not even the right word, is it, really? A check in the future to see if they are still singing live, or if maybe one of the audience members says, "Hey, Phil, this band you said that were live, I'm not sure they are, do you want to check them?" So he goes and checks them, and then works out that they aren't singing live, even though they're supposed to be singing live. And then they get a bit more publicity. for the next group of people to go along and say, you know, Phil said that you weren't singing live, but you are singing live. And then they send basically a nice little letter to Phil saying, really sorry, Phil, I'd got laryngitis, or I wasn't feeling very well, so we had to mime on that concert. We won't be doing any more, don't worry, next concert's going to be fully live. Yeah, so I can see a little bit of a flaw there. So a little bit of a flaw on the live performances. Fabulous idea though, I really like the idea. I can also see a little bit of a flaw on the recording side. So going back to what I very first said about the recording, with as in, like, you know, you create an album, you send it off to Phil. Phil checks it out with his software to see if you're using auto-tune, and sends it back saying, no, it's not using auto-tune. There's a lot of little subtle ways to use, and it's not auto-tune that you'd be worried about in that particular instance. What people use, when I've used it in Cubase, I use Cubase, it's my DAW, DAW, which I'm sure many of you know what we're on about. So in my DAW, I can actually analyze the vocal line, and I can shift the pitch of the odd note here and there. And the software that I use is so good, I'd be very surprised if it could be picked up with any. I mean, these are just tiny little adjustments that we do. If you do, say, you do a whole vocal take, and there's maybe just one note that's not quite in or out, and you'd use a little bit of pitch correction there. So I doubt you'd find those, but yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. I'm not knocking the idea. It's a great idea. And when we pay for our tickets, then we really do want to be paying for tickets to go and see a live show. Now, if you, say, for instance, went to see a band, which I'm jumping around a little bit, but that's what I do when I'm sort of live talking. But so if we want to go and see a band, and let's say, for instance, it's a big band, really big band, like, say, Coldplay or something like that, or Natalie Imbruglia, or you know, Foo Fighters or something like that. We're going to pay a lot of money for those tickets, and people do pay an awful lot of money. So it's sort of quite important that you get your money's worth. Now, some of the bands I think that are probably going to be, you know, sending their music into Phil. I'm not trying to cast any aspersions, but is that the right word? Maybe it's not. Anyway, so they may not cost an awful lot to go to a concert. I mean, what, £25, £30 maybe for a concert? I mean, you're either lucky or you're not lucky, you know, when you go there. And I'm not sure many people, if they're going to see their favourite band, are going to really care if they're miming on one record or one or two tracks, or because they've got a bit older and maybe they can't quite hit the notes or something like that. Now, I think the thing that would probably be most effective in those circumstances, and I think this is what will probably happen, I think the music industry, if this does take off, I think they'll kick back. And the way I think that they might kick back is they might put on the bottom of, you know, like a disclaimer, on the bottom of a ticket or at the bottom of advertising, they may well put, this show may contain some miming or auto-tune. So then, are you going to stop going to see Coldplay if, say, for instance, a couple of their tracks or are mimed? Can't see you doing that. Foo Fighters, when Foo Fighters gets into his 70s and he has to do a couple of tracks mimed because he just can't quite catch it. You'll find that I think all bands, if it ends up becoming a problem in the music industry and people are starting to shout and ask for their money back and say, oh no, this is no good because I don't really know how much of that show that I went to see was live or whether it was mimed. Now, if they put a disclaimer on the bottom of all tickets, as I've said, and on the website and on all advertisement, and say, this show may include, like they do with strobe lighting and things like that, you know, then you take your chances. You know, if you're affected by strobe lighting, then you choose to go or don't go. You know, it's up to you. And if you're affected by something being live or not being live, then it's up to you. whether you go or you don't do. You're not going to find bands saying that, well, which particular songs are going to be mimed. You're not going to do that. It's a show. So they may well sing a high percentage of them. They may well sing 2, and the rest of them are mimed. But as long as they've got that on the ticket or on the advertisement that this show may contain some miming, it may contain some lip sync, which is the same as miming. Sorry, that's for American people. They call it lip sync, I think. And it also may contain some form of auto-tune. And I think that's the music business. We'll just put that on tickets, and that's the end of that. Now, I do think it's a brilliant concept, Phil. Don't think that I'm trying to put it down, because I'm not. I think it's a brilliant way to start, but you also probably need to have some form of follow-up testing, which you may have. You just didn't explain that you did have that on the video. I watched the video on Sunday. So if you have got that, that's brilliant. Be aware, music business doesn't play by the rules, never has done, and people do use auto-tune a lot of the time, and it's very difficult to stop people from doing that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my video, and good luck, Phil. Hope it works. Wings of Pegasus, brilliant channel. Do have a listen to it, and if you've liked this video, then please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.